Title slide is John 3:16 through 18. I don't like to just leave it at 3:16. It says, "For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whoever believes in him shall not perish, but have eternal life. For God did not send the Son into the world to judge the world, but that the world might be saved through him. He who believes in him is not judged. He who does not believe has been judged already, because he has not believed in the name of the only begotten Son of God." So we tend to distill this into the belief in the faith, into doctrines and beliefs and machinations. I do. I do. Okay. I don't know about everybody, but I came at this when I originally looked at this. I was in a very, very engineering mindset. Engineering and science, been my career, and I was deep in it, and I was looking to solve problems. I approached it as a problem that needed to be solved, like a Rubik's Cube, or repairing some electronics, or upgrading a piece of equipment that keeps failing. Very black and white approach. Either this works or it doesn't work. Works or doesn't work. Relay logic, right? Black and white. Boom, 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 boom. And the doctrines that and beliefs I had been taught from a baby all the way up were just not substantiated. So I needed to find the truth. Computer program. Also, something else I've done in my career, right? Okay. Right? Troubleshooting an INI file. Why isn't this executing properly? Why isn't this code coming to the EEPROM and coming over here? Like, fixed. And I never doubted, not once, like, it's true. God is real. Jesus is real. Now they're Yahweh and Yeshua. Back then, that's what they were. And that's just fine. And I never doubted it. I just needed to fix it because I troubleshoot things for a living. Okay. It needs to be fixed. And so I went about fixing it. Now, I have been either it's learned or it's inherent trait, the ability to divorce my emotions from what's happening in front of me. This could very well be a learned behavior because that's the point of Navy boot camp. Navy boot camp is the world is going crazy. You keep your wits about you and you save that ship and you keep going. Okay. They drill it into you. They drill it into the Marines. They drill it into Army, Air Force, everybody. That's the military mindset is mission first, emotions later, if ever. Okay. Okay. But then that's why we have so many of these guys come home and they're broken. Right. I even have a family member who said the only time he felt normal at the end of his Iraqi tour was in Iraq. He doesn't feel normal in peacetime anymore. So that's a problem, right? The country is using us for that. But I'm going to make a tangent here is that the academics, the Christian academics are opposite. This is something I just recently learned. I made a video about it this week and trashed it because it didn't quite come out right. But I've learned that the academics had started to make YouTube videos about 5 years ago. And the Christian ones went into seminary school a very emotionally attached, emotional foundation for their beliefs, right? That is kind of the Protestant thing, okay? Very, I believe, arms wide open and whatever for you, Lord. All that touchy-feely stuff that us military guys are just like, right, 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 and they go in and they get to master's degree level. They start learning the foreign languages and they become atheists because they find out that all of these doctrines that they were just drilled into them that had to be true and everything has to be true, was made up, is time stamped, and they get to reading the source documents and they're like, oh, and they lose their faith. There's the most famous one is Bart Ehrman, who knows what we know and ditched the faith entirely. And what's interesting is even some of them who stay Christian stay light Christian because they're just like, they still believe, but they but it's such a mess or whatever. And that's just the way it is. But they started from a foundation of emotion. I did not. And they paid money. Could you imagine getting into your third or fourth year of college with a pile of debt because you were convinced you were going to become a minister, and then finding all this stuff out? You're faced with a choice. It's either true or it's not. If it's true, you have to either change and lose your entire existence, or you have to go home and tell people falsehoods. That's one thing that I learned in my studies, was that I was reading books that they read in seminary to find out the truth about Easter and Christmas, for instance, right? And so they know. And so the other thing is, so the Christian academics, the ones who go to school to go to the PhD route to learn the languages, they end up with their faith at least damaged. The Jewish ones don't. The Jewish ones even have a more favorable view of the New Testament than some of the Christian ones. And I'm like, how can this be? Because it could be because of, because we're here with the Shema and the Hebrew stuff all the time that I'm gravitating to them. But then I watch these Jewish scholars, they are excited to learn. They're jumping for joy when they're explaining it. They sound like somebody like me who's like, this is great truth. This is going to help you out. And they use the New Testament. They look at it all. They don't believe that Yeshua was the Messiah, but they believe that he was a Jewish rabbi. And they use his teachings as a time marker for the end of the Second Temple era. But they don't lose their faith because they're okay with the mess. There's no document that's going to be unearthed from some cave somewhere that can make them not Jewish. Right? Right? If your faith is built on doctrines, if your faith is built on this house of cards that we've created that's called Christianity, then you're vulnerable. If your faith is built on, I'm Jewish, the world has been trying to kill my people for 2,000 years and failing because God exists, right? That's a mindset. That means that you can't be shaken, right? Now, we wish they'd be shaken a little bit so they accept Yeshua as the Son of God, right? But the Jewish guys don't abandon the faith. That's just a little bit of a tangent. But the Christian ones, their doctrines are very emotion, or their foundation is very emotion and very doctrinally based. One guy went through Plymouth Brethren. They call themselves evangelicals, which I don't even know what that means. I just thought they were Protestants and Catholics, right? So evangelicalism is like a subset of Protestantism, and these guys who were that, they get rocked and they lose it. But that was a tangent, but it fits in today because my emotionless path continued for a good while. And you could see this across the debates because that's where I was like online debating, scorched earth. I didn't have responsibilities like this stuff, right? I could go be a flaming lunatic on the internet all day long. Nobody cared, right? And you could see these debates just raging and raging and raging. And that's where I got to be emotional because, like, there's nothing in the New Testament that repeals the Sabbath. Not a word, right? The Sabbath is the Sabbath, right? And it's from Friday sunset, Saturday sunset, has been since creation, isn't changing, isn't moving. And all these guys saying that they moved it. And even Rome going, no, we did that. And they're still like, no, it's still in the Bible. And that's the frustrating part, is when people refuse to see what's right in front of them. But I never thought to condemn anybody. That I see that online today, where if you don't have certain doctrines, they feel empowered to tell you that you're going to burn in hell, and they can treat you poorly. And why would you do that? At what point in the New Testament was that the behavior of the good guys? Not. It's always the bad guys. The bad guys were the ones, you better not speak this name, Yeshua. We're going to lock you in jail for believing this way. We're going to hunt you down, Paul, before his conversion, right? The bad guys were the hunting down ones. The good guys were the, Yeah, it's a mess, right? And you'll figure it out. The Holy Spirit will guide you, right? So if these guys really believed in the Holy Spirit, why are they feel like they have to be the one to drive the change if the Holy Spirit's going to drive the change, right? And we all who have grown up and mature Christians here, we know the change doesn't come immediately. You might know the truth and be mulling it for 10 years before you're like, wait a minute, that is important. I am going to change, right? So for me, I think it's a mature thing to be like, yeah, Christianity's a mess, but God knows what he's doing, right? I mean, you can't control what other people believes, right? Um, but the transition period from my emotionless approach to letting emotion creep in came with an old job. My last job was it was the best, like nobody ever heard of a company that was this good, turned into the worst. Evil people came in with bad intentions and upended the place, destroyed the culture of the company, and the company didn't do anything about it. And that's when you start losing sleep at night, right? Because this happened over a period of many years. Okay, many years. We went from this family where we would work late hours and inconvenience ourselves to meet the company goals, and then periodically have humongous parties and have bonuses to celebrate victories. And if we had a good year, we celebrated together. If we had a bad year, we suffered together. And we all had each other's back, and everybody could be counted on wherever they were. It was only like 120 of us across the country to get it done. And then it flipped. These people came in, they were evil. I've never been yelled at work. I was in the Navy and I was never been yelled at work, right? Outside of boot camp. Okay. Okay. Boot camp's different, right? I mean, these people had no decorum. They were bad. They were mean, absolutely mean, threatening people with their jobs, horrible agendas, gobbling up power. And creating a hostile work environment that was reported several times by several individuals without even knowing that each one were doing it. And the upper management didn't do anything about it. They let the place burn to the ground. I mean, it still exists, but with completely different people now, right? The only way out for me, well, all the years of that awful thing took a toll on me. As my kids made fun of me, I was walking around the house talking to myself all the time, talking to myself, wondering why these people are acting this way. Why are you acting this way? Why would you even you can't do this at work. It's against the law and all these schemes and all this craziness, and just wandering around talking to myself out loud because the stuff that's in my head is like, this just doesn't make sense. Again, I'm a problem solver, right? Either something's a problem or it's not. Now, if it's a problem, how big of a problem? If it's a big problem, we got to do something about it. If it's a little problem, maybe you live with it for the rest of your life because the cost of change is too much, right? This is just basic managerial type stuff, right? These people were changing stuff and rechanging it and unchanging it. In one instance, this person made us change our software for like the third time to do this data gathering that was completely unnecessary. And a year later, that individual accused us of not doing it. So we built the software to capture some data that was hard to capture. And she said that nobody had ever used it. And one of my guys went, what? Right? Because my team was all upset with these people. Ran a report. We had 5,000 lines of data that this person never looked at once. They made us do that to the software, saying if we didn't do it, that we were going to lose our certification and planet Earth's going to fall and this and that and the other. 5,000 lines of data, not once did they look at it. Craziness. Okay. And so the fix for me was to get another job. And man, do I not regret doing that. I ditched that company and it was flushed out of my head very fast. And granted, my mom died at the same time, but I was so free. That weight was lifted off of me and it was great. And I'm just never going to get the hair back, but that's okay. Right. You know, um, shedding that negativity for, was just huge. And the company had been immersed in negativity for so long that it was an emotional weight lifted. And at my new job, there's nothing they can do to me that compares to that, right? Every job's got its stupidity, right? But at least we're mission focused, right? And somebody's demanding it because of some reason or whatever. So we do it, right? Life is a lot easier since then. But this is another reason why I have to insist on the people who say works don't matter being dead wrong. Dead wrong. There is no way that's true because the evil people's works messed with my brain to where I'm doing stuff that I wouldn't normally do. I'm saying stuff that I wouldn't normally do. I'm not behaving right because of the actions of other people. If evil works matter, good works matter too. Okay, you can't just say one thing or the other, right? Because if works don't matter, then Satan is saved. I mean, come on, right? Right? Can we agree that Satan's not saved? Right? Right? And he's not saved because of his deeds. Okay. So we have this works don't matter stuff is just for the birds. The emotional trauma of working in a horrible environment just breaks you down. You got to do it, right? The whole household's living is depending on the check, and and you're trapped. You're in a prison. Um, but that's a job. You can leave a job. What happens when that scenario that every one of you just related to happens with your family and you can't leave? What do you do? I use this as a setup. The elephant in the room is when our friends and family act horribly for years and do not take any correction, don't are just intent on flaming out and hitting rock bottom and every cliff between them and the rock, and you're just like and bringing everybody down with them, and there's nothing you could do about it. What do you do? It's terrible. I mean, the friction from our faith is one thing. Okay. I'm not talking about that right now. I had to throw my own parents out of my house because of our faith, because of the faith dispute. What I'm talking about is basic civility, taking care of yourself, opening doors for people, cleaning up your own messes, treating people with basic human rights. When your family doesn't do it, and don't you look at us, you look at our little beaver cleaver looking house today, right? We came out here to make this because we left a mess. We left a mess behind in the West. My family, my Diana's family is pretty cool. But my family are so mean to each other. And my parents, my mom was so mean to each other. Siblings were so mean to each other, holding grudges for decades. Just terrible. We wanted to have a house and have a life, but we also we wanted to break that cycle, right? That cycle was bad, right? It was just terrible. And you could see the kids of my siblings that didn't break away from that can carry on the legacy, okay? Because that's their normal. Their normal is dysfunction. And we didn't want that. So we come here. And now you're the salt of the earth, but if the salt has become tasteless, how will it be made salty again? It is no longer good for anything except to be thrown out to be trampled underfoot by men. You are the light of the world. A city set on a hill cannot be hidden, nor does anyone light a lamp and put it under a basket, but put it on the lampstand and gives light to all who are in the house. Let your light shine before men in such a way that they may see your good works and glorify your Father who is in heaven. We see the apostasy in the world and we want to fix our doctrines because we know God exists. We believe in him. We believe him. And we believe he sent his son to provide the only path for salvation. Our lives begin and end with works. Our faith drives our behavior. Otherwise, you have no faith. If you're just doing whatever, then you believe in whatever. And so those works are to love God with all our heart, our mind, our strength, and to love our neighbors as ourselves. So we don't understand when people don't treat us with that basic tenet. If you hold that basic tenet that everybody is a child of God, has the opportunity for salvation, has dignity, has worth, if you hold that tenet, but then the people on the who are you're dealing with do not act that way to you, it doesn't compute. It bugs us. It bugs me. I'll tell you that, right? It's it hurts. It just flat hurts when people just want to flame out. And sometimes that hurt doesn't go away. You know that? You know, my mom would say the awfulest things. And then the next time you talk to her, it's like it never even happened. And her sister was committed and spent her last days in an insane asylum. Her brother had a lot of, so it was a hereditary thing. Diana is under orders that if I ever exhibit those behaviors, that she is to hit me over the head with a pan and lock up the guns, right? Because it's hereditary. It's in there somewhere, right? But this is just, I mean, I had a niece tell off the entire family on Facebook, tell us an awful thing because it was her second or third marriage. She was planning it online on Facebook with a little earth icon next to it so anybody could see it, right? And I was talking to my dad on the phone. My dad raised my niece and nephew, these two. So she calls him dad. She really doesn't, from 18 months on, my dad was her dad. And she was my sister, right? Still is really. But so I talked to my dad on the phone and I say, yeah, did you see Bleep's wedding stuff? And he goes, what? She's getting married again? I said, yeah. You didn't know? He didn't know. I'm like, oh, well, it's pretty early, you know. I'm sure she's gonna tell you. When she found out, she went berserk. I had to block her from my Facebook because of the expletive rants and just berserk. And I'm like, you're doing this online. How is this a secret? How would anybody ever think that your wedding would be a secret from your parents that you're planning on? She went kablooey, told us all off. And the last time we saw her, she was lost as to why nobody was talking to her. She told us all to stop talking to her. And we had enough. And so we said, I'll take you up on that one. Right? And so now she's finally calming down. She's coming out of it. So life's better, right? But now, so okay, right? You might want to go on an apology tour there, right? Right? You know, but I don't know how, because I mean, when you start having to block people or whatever, so it's terrible. So this isn't new. Yahweh in Genesis 3:13, after Adam and Eve and Satan had the fall, he says, "What is this you have done?" And the woman says, "The serpent deceived me and I ate." Even though he knew before he created this world everything that was going to happen before the end of this world, he knows it all, start to finish. He declares the end from the beginning. He knew it was going to happen. This sentence, this question, "What is this you have done?" is not him asking what you have done. It actually comes after he found out what they've done. This is an expression of exasperation, of disappointment. Even though he knew it was going to happen, he's still disappointed at his children's decision. That's crazy. The language is meant to emphasize the gravity of the situation. But understand, if God can be hurt by people not listening, we're not going to escape that either. Okay? We're made in his image. And most of the time, because we're Westerners, we think that that's a Xerox. That's just the physical resemblance. But it's comprehensive. We have emotions because he has emotions. He built us to have happiness, sadness, gladness, depression, exuberance, the whole gambit of emotions I'm so emotionless, I don't even remember what they are. But we're supposed to have them. Everybody has a different degree of his attributes. So we're not all the same. But if he's going to be bummed, we're going to be bummed. He let himself be vulnerable by giving us free will and letting that play out. So if he let himself be vulnerable, whether we let ourselves be vulnerable or not, we are vulnerable. Nobody's tough enough to take it all. You might pretend it, but at some point that's going to hit you like a sack of potatoes, and it's going to hit you. And so he's all powerful, he's all knowing, but he allows himself to be vulnerable by giving us free will. And this is why he likens sin to adultery, because it breaks his heart, like if a guy cheats on his wife or a wife cheats on the guy, the husband. That's heart wrenching. That's the most important bond we have on this as mortal people, is with our spouses. Um, well, second to our relationship with God and Yeshua, right? But as our mortal realm, the most important bond we have is that marriage bond. And when we sin, he views it like we're cheating on him. That's a problem. It breaks his heart. It's not just the black and white breaking of the law. That's real, but the emotions attached to it are just horrible. Isaiah 53, 4 through 5. Surely our griefs he himself bore, and our sorrows he carried, yet we ourselves esteemed him stricken, smitten of God, and afflicted. But he was pierced through for our transgressions, he was crushed for our iniquities. The chastening for our peace fell upon him, and by his wounds we are healed. So, what happened at the garden was a preamble, a foreshadowing of the entire plan of salvation. Yahweh knew Adam and Eve were going to fall. He knew Satan was going to tempt them. He let it happen. He let the fall happen, just like he knew his son was going to die the way his son died. He knew that from the foundation of the world, too. The plan established was that Yeshua would bear our transgressions in a very violent way. Yahweh, knowing everything at a given time, it's not like he's not like us, where I say these words and they're time stamped and they exist, and then a moment later they're gone. He experiences everything at once. He is apart from time. Time does not affect him. He creates time. So he knows every scenario of which the planet plays out. And he chose the one we're on. And we're on it. And we're not getting off of it until he decides to alter his plan or complete his plan, which is probably what he's going to do. He's probably going to complete it, right? And so he knows how the events would turn out in an instant. And so he ran all these scenarios and he chose this. And so his son was sacrificed. His son was dead before he said, Bereshit bara Elohim, before he said, in the beginning, Elohim created the heavens and the earth. Before he said that, it was done. The word that I had to look up is a fait accompli. Or no, it's fait accompli, right? Which is a French word meaning it's already done. It's inevitable. There's nothing you could do about it. It's completed. And so the passages in the screen, if you notice, the passages on the screen are written in the past tense. Before they happened, they're written in the past tense. That means they were done before they began. There's nothing we can do to change what's going to happen. There's nothing Satan can do to change what's going to happen. That it's fait accompli. And so on the cross, after this, Yeshua, knowing that all things had already been finished, in order to finish the scripture, he said, I'm thirsty, and a jar of full sour wine was standing there. So they put a sponge full of the sour wine upon a branch of hyssop and brought it up to his mouth. Therefore, when Yeshua had received the sour wine, he said, "It is finished." And bowing his head, he gave up his spirit. You understand the last action before he died was somebody whose name we don't know showing him mercy. Somebody's name who's not recorded gave the condemned man some wine, some sour wine, to wet his mouth. Did a kind to the Messiah, did a solid to him. That's pretty touching. That somebody at that cross who had the authority and ability to put the hyssop, the sponge material, to wet it and get it up to him, didn't care who was looking on, didn't care what they saw, actually showed him a mercy. But this betrayal, he knew it was going to happen. And he knew it was going to happen from the foundation of the world. He said plainly that he was with his Father in the creation of the world. So does Paul. So he was there, and he knew his mission when it was declared, when it was decided. But my thesis is that, and the other Christians put so much focus on the violence of his death. And they say it's the most violent death that's ever occurred or something like that. Not true. Not true at all. Okay. There's a lot worse ways to go physically. Okay. We don't want to talk about, we were talking about what the Muslims were doing just a minute ago. Okay. Okay. There's worse ways to go except for the betrayal, because he was there at the beginning and the emotional pain. Going into Jerusalem on a donkey where they're praising you, Hosanna in the highest, putting palm fronds down in front of you, and you know that the people doing that in a couple days are gonna murder you. Could you imagine? Could you imagine this? Could you imagine having to pretend to be happy with their offering, knowing exactly what they're going to do, and they're going to betray him? He lived and built relationships with people that ultimately betrayed him, and he knew it. He knew it while it was happening. I think the worst part of his death is the emotional part, not the physical part. The fact that his brethren, his kinsmen, the people that were like, we're going to make you king, we're going to make you king, we can be on your right hand, we can be on your left hand, they scattered. He knew that inside of them that they wanted to stop and fight. He knew they wanted to, but he also knew they couldn't, that nothing would happen. He heard them cry out for Barabbas instead of him. Ouch. Imagine that. Imagine your family going up to the jail before the execution and the warden coming out saying, you can have your, family member, or you can have this stranger who is a bad dude. And they go, give us the stranger. Could you imagine? That's just terrible. Could you imagine them saying, we have no king but Caesar? In order to get the Messiah executed, they said, we have no king but Caesar. That betrayal, terrible, terrible. But it was all meant for good. He went through that in order to suffer so that it could swing to the positive. And you just need to be happy that we don't have to do any of that. That's not our thing. It's good. It was good, but they didn't realize it until it was all over, because his disciples had to go through that anguish as well. They had to remember, when he was resurrected, he hid himself from the guys and said, hey, what's been happening here in the city these past couple of days? What's going on? And they said, are you the only person in Jerusalem who doesn't know? And then he hears them describe his innocent death, and how good must that have felt? How good must that have felt to be dead for 3 days, to be resurrected, and then to find out that your followers stayed true. They still believed, they didn't know, they were still in heartache, and then he had to like show himself to them. And then what exuberation they're going to have. So we can know that the emotional challenges we go through are for good, even though we have no idea what that good could be. I mean, we've all been there. We've all had family members and loved ones just do the most stupid things and hurt all kinds of people. And we don't know why they do it. We don't know why. We may never know why, but there is some good out there. And only thing I know to do is be angry and do not sin, because we are emotional creatures. We established that we're created in the image of Elohim, so we have the same emotions. And so he gets mad too. We're allowed to get mad. We're allowed to get sad. We are not commanded to be emotionless robots in any way, shape, or form. But we just can't sin about it. We can't let it affect us to the point that we do bad stuff back, that we sink to the level. And that's all I got. So let's discuss. I bet you guys have something to talk about today.